there was in 1962 a Neanderthal age, and of course today things must be much improved. But the gist of my presentation will be that this is not so, and this is not so not by accident, but because we are powerful driver which push us in a different direction. I will focus on forms of corporate penetration, which is, as was mentioned already, are based on science, based on the image of science. But then this goes on, and it's not only the lobbyists presenting themselves as defender of science, but co-opting in their action even well-meaning citizens which are, driven to embrace this kind of crusade against enemies of science, and this crusade is made possible by the emergence of new media. So we argue in the article which you see here, which I wrote with Nina, with our friend there, Martin Pigeon and others, was to say that there is in fact a kind of increasingly sophisticated strategy on the part of lobbies. So first they try to falsify the test or the methodology, then the legitimacy of the organization doing the test. They are not the good scientists, or they are not, this is not their job. And then finally, more broad, like to create a worldview where the idea of regulation becomes a hindrance, something we don't need because market, after all, can take care of it. So this is, in a sense, regulatory capture, which is, you know what it is. And what is fine about regulatory capture is that all schools of thought agree that it is unavoidable. Unavoidable for the people of public interest theory, because this is a kind of evolution of the agency which is developed to meet the public interest, but unavoidable a fortiori for the upholder of the regulatory capture theory, which says that those those regulators are created in the first place to serve the industry which they are supposed to regulate. And so, but okay, because this is one of the guy of the neoclassical compound, Montpellier and all that, he clearly says, for this reason, you don't need regulators. Okay, this is a bottom line. For Crow, then it's a bit more complex. Initially, the regulator behaves, but then is captured, and after it is captured, it becomes de facto, totally at the service of the sector it should regulate, and even the staff they recruit come from the same sector. Next stage, now we go to regulatory capitalism. Here, the regulation and the use of standards is used as a way to increase market penetration. But even here, there is, some kind of defense. Some people, we don't know, even some academical people says that regulatory capitalism is good because allowing fairer distribution of resources. There is a less optimistic view. Here I quote Draos, is an act of the tragedy of commodification. I side, as you may guess, more on the second school, and I want to show you only one slide from a recent book of sociologists of quantification, where standards are used as an instrument of commodification of norms. So they decide what is good and what is bad. And this is done when norms which would belong to civic world, like solidarity, or a green world like environmental protection, or domestic world like tradition. I'm now using the concept of world as a category of what we should look at as a direction of good, is translated into a market good. No? So the market good makes labels which correspond to this word, but are driven by the market good. This is really the commodification of ethics. Huh? This is really fantastic. If you want to know more about this, you can read this book. This comes from a chapter written by Thévenot on this book, and then he wrote with Botanics this other beautiful book where he described the various order of words and how they are then consumed. So what I'm talking about at the end of the day is something like cognitive capture. No? This is really the last frontier of regulatory capture. We, as this review says, regulators come to be the world not because they have been purchased, using some kind of currency, but because they truly believe that they have a point. And probably Naomi was making the case of the New York Times article. No, so they, came into believing the narrative of the corporation. And science has a lot to do with that, as we have said. There is a clear power asymmetry. I'm a bit less optimistic than Naomi on that. I think there is a clear imbalance of forces because the people who have the deeper pocket can purchase more scientists or more scientists. I might be cynical and say that while regulators need to be purchased, science begs to be purchased in a normal academic environment in today's university. Come on, let's face it. Okay, so if you want to, these two books, they both tackle the same issue. Sylvain Laurent is one of the co-authors of Stéphane Foucault, who will talk after me. And they really talk about knowledge as a currency of lobbies. So the lobbies use even simply data, no? Because they have the data, and hence people need the data to do their work. Like in the European Commission, I was in the European Commission myself for many years. You need data, and who has the data? Well, the sector responsible for that activity. So, of course, you go and you talk to them. And there is nothing new, in a sense, in this, because this idea that science is a kind of, very available, is a self-service shop in the work of Ulrich Beck, which is, one of the most famous German sociologists. So if you have deeper pocket, you have more science. So there has been a movement. Naomi said correctly, my book is 2010. No? She said it clearly, 2010, now we are 2022. In these 12 years, a lot of things have changed in this. So at the time of the book of Naomi and Eric Conway, it was sound science, good epidemiology, all these things put around by the people in the Philip Morris Tobacco and Company, etc. But now we have been a jump from guardians of sound science to guardians of reason, and here I pass the ball to my the speaker after me, who wrote this fantastic book, which you have there in copy, and it described this event, where using the new media, they convince well-meaning people, honest people, to embark in this fight against the enemies of GMO, against the enemy of nuclear energy, against, whatever is that industry doesn't want to be opposed. And if you look even more into the detail of how this is done, it's really a nice ecosystem. You start with some private interest group, a corporation. First, they go via a law firm. They go with the lawyers. The lawyers identify a correct company which does as a job to procure scientists, the best scientists, not any scientists. They must be the best scientists. And then these people, may colonize journals. They may recruit trolls, and the trolls are those people who behave like they are into independent thinker, but they are not. They are paid to pretend to be simple people who defend nuclear energy because they like nuclear energy. And so you have, both the merchant of doubt strategy and the capture mechanism which obey to them. And this is my last slide. Stéphane, in his book, called this strategy so rapide et inédite, no? So no, quick and unseen before. And why they are quick, and this is where I leave you, and this is where I'm working now, because they use a new kind of tools which are at our disposal. Not only the new media, but also cognitive psychology applied to new media. And now we should open a big discussion on cognitive psychology. We cannot do it because my time is finished. But all these books which I show you there and other make this point that the coupling cognitive psychology and media, artificial intelligence and big data, create really a powerful weapon which can be exploited for the purpose of domination. So I also have some further reading. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions in the crowd? Okay, you want to start?
Do you mean about nudging? I didn't use the word nudging, but yeah.
That's what you talk or not? When you
See. If you want, yes. Nudging is cognitive psychology. Yes, nudging. The idea that, Cass Sunstein, for instance, you know him. He's a very famous person in nudging. You know, this theory that for their own good, you push people gently toward doing things which are okay for them, like writing a will, procuring an insurance. In fact, this is also an instrument of manipulation and domination. People like Cass Sunstein are famous for saying that if we knew the fact, we would stop disagreeing, no? So there is this idea that we are, give me the right number and we stop discussing, which is really, I find this idea terribly toxic, because also terribly dangerous. But it's precisely that, yes, nudging.
Yeah. Are there more questions in the crowd? I ask them. Yeah?
No, just a second. Okay, nudging is one aspect, but there are many, many others. The strategy of manipulation are also those used by Google, to influence. Nudging is one particular aspect, but there is all a spectrum of technology which you can use using artificial intelligence and big data to orient, identify the target, select the target, and the message to go with the target. And this has been used by in dominating customers and voters, no? The Cambridge Analytica scandal, you heard about that. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's your talk. I was just wondering, because you were talking about regulation so much and how and ethics, how can we get on common ground again? Because I talked to you about that before, like regulation, sharing the same morals, but you were talking about like ethics and diversity, and that we cannot create a normal standard. How can we do that?
Okay, I can do another talk, no?
Yes.
No, this is, now this is open the other door. Now the story that among many other things, these new media have created an incredible polarization in our society, so that we see it everywhere now. No, it's no election which is not contested, and it's how we can across about polarization. I think there is a metabolic time for us to metabolize this new world, the world in which the new media are part of our life, okay? And this will not done in one day. And this process of metabolization will take probably many years, as it took many years when we introduced the printing press. You can discuss it, it has been written a lot about that. How many years it took the people to overcome the introduction of the printing press? Probably 1 century, no? Till the Peace of Westphalia, probably, no? In 1 century, after a few religious wars, the printing press were more or less, metabolized, and we could go about our life. But I think this is not going to be extremely quick. This is my opinion, at least.
Yeah. So regarding the terms greenwashing, ethical washing, regulation washing,
we will see more of that. Yeah.
it's only increasing.
And this introduced the terrible chapter of participation, because we are all in favor of participation, no? Participatory technique and so on and so forth. But then we know that if we participate, the first people to participate will be the lobbies. We discussed this in our article, but it's a well-known phenomenon, no? And then the room will be full of lobbyists, which are very charming. I never met a lobbyist who was antipatico. And then they're also very well prepared. So,
what can normal or academia researcher do against those lobbyists to create some more diversity in ethics or validation?
Okay.
What is your opinion on that?
Why was I given this chair? No. Naomi answered this question before me, and she gave a very optimistic reply. Okay, of course you can try to defend yourself. Of course, if you are old and tenured, you can defend yourself better than if you are a PhD student who needs to publish 3 papers to get a PhD. Why I'm mentioning this? Because it's linked, no? So intellectual freedom and the possibility to react to being bought on the market by a company also, comes with this. How do I live my academic life? what type of constraints I have. If I am under the hinge of publish or perish, it would be very difficult for me to resist capture. No, I will be forced into capture. We pushed into capture de facto.
All right. Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.